Welcome back to the Basics Basic. We are doing another HRCYED update, and I love these videos. I love to read, I love to share my thoughts with you, and so we are back to put 3 more books on the HRCYED board. So first this week, we read a romance, which I haven't read in a minute. This was Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. I've read a number of Ali Hazelwood's books in the past. I really enjoyed The Love Hypothesis, but have had an iffy relationship with her more recent books. I'm not a huge spice reader, and her books are spicy, so definitely a content warning there if that's something you typically try to avoid. I decided to give it a shot because a booktuber that I enjoy a lot of the same reads as her, she really liked it, and so I was like, you know what, maybe I'll give Ali Hazelwood another shot. This book is about Maya. She has an older brother who's about 10 years older than her, and he is getting married in Sicily. And so she hops on a plane and heads over to Italy for the wedding. She runs into Connor, who is A, her brother's best friend, B, a good number of years older than her, and 3, in a forced proximity trope with her. So this is definitely a tropey book in true Ali Hazelwood fashion. There's a lot of fun with it. I did not know what I would think about the age gap romance. I don't mind it in every situation. I think there are some relationships that I've seen where there's a really healthy relationship, they communicate well together, they are able to express their wants and needs to each other, and I've seen, even in my own personal life, people with age gap love stories have a really beautiful ending. But I also have seen love stories where it's a young girl and there's this older man who's about her father's age, and he's like showing her off like she's a prize, and he'll like get the guys to be like, look at how young I got a girl. And I really don't like that. So I wasn't sure which way this romance was going to go. I was okay with it. I finished the book being like, you know what, it's all right. I'm not upset about this love story, which is a testament to Ali Hazelwood's writing and the fact that I can get on board for a love story even if it's not a trope I typically would find myself reaching for and looking to read more of. There are flashbacks throughout the book that I think make the forced proximity, very short timeline of the wedding work. I don't really love books where it takes place over 3 days and they go from like not really knowing each other to in love. And so having all the context of the flashbacks for the characters made the story much more believable, and I thought that was really where the heart of the story was. And I really enjoyed those. This book is really similar to The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren, which I read in May, I want to say. If you like The Paradise Problem, you're going to like this book. There's a lot of similarities in terms of some plot line and whatnot. The premises are different-ish. They're both on a tropical location for a wedding, but how they get there and why they're there is different. But if you like that, you'll probably like this. The questions that this book seeks to ask are, how should our pasts inform our opinions on love and our perspective on who we should love and why we should love them? It also asks whether or not you can have a healthy relationship when one person in the relationship has significantly more life experience and resources than the other, and can you have a relationship that works, or is that power imbalance always going to be in play? Overall, I gave this book 3 stars. It was fine. I wasn't super engaged with it, but in fairness, it had tropes that I didn't know that I was necessarily going to love to begin with, and this is an author where I've historically liked some of her books and have liked them less and less as I've gone on. So take that all with a grain of salt. If you are a huge Ali Hazelwood fan, you're going to love this. It's similar to some of her newer works, but it just wasn't for me, and that's okay because not every book is for every reader. But every book does get to go on the HRCYED board. So first, this went in the animal category, and we put this for domestic animals. There is a dog named Tiny who makes a very big presence in the book, has different plot points, and is just a really sweet character. So I thought I have to plug Tiny in for this spot because they have a huge role in the book. I also put this in the name challenge for P, and this is for Problematic Summer Romance. And so now this is what our board looks like with those 2 spots added. Next, I read Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. I have been in the Throne of Glass series for over a year now. I have been slowly plodding my way through. I don't know why this series isn't gripping me in the way it seems to have gripped the world. This is the 3rd book in the Throne of Glass series, so if you have not read books 1 or 2, I would recommend skipping to where I'm putting the spots on the HRCYED board, because I don't want to give away any spoilers, but in order to talk about some of the questions this book asks and a bit of the summary for the book, I have to spoil things that happen in previous books. So just want to give a spoiler warning. I'm not going to spoil this book, but it will give some spoilers for the last 2 books. In this book, Selena is away from the castle and she is in Wendlin, I think is how you say it. So she is not really living as an assassin. She's not fulfilling any of those assassin roles or stereotypes that we've seen her in. And she's really confronting herself, her past, and her role in this world. And it's a very different change of pace. It's long and it's weirdly slow. It feels very character driven, whereas the other 2 books have felt a lot more plot driven. A lot happens. So I don't even want to say it's not plot driven, but it's just not the same as the previous 2 books. It's very based on who is Selena, what is she going through, and how is she going to get through it. And she simultaneously is working with this fae warrior named Rowan, who we love. And Rowan and her are working together to try and build some of her magic and see what is possible with her and with who she can become. So the majority of the book is just set with them working through this. And this is really, I think, going to be a turning point for this series. Obviously, I've not read the rest of the book, so I can't say that in full confidence, but it's definitely steering away from like assassin Selena to the new role Selena's taking on. I'm not going to say any more than that because you got to read the book. But that's kind of what we're dealing with here. The questions that this book asks are, what does it mean to reclaim your identity after trauma? How do grief and guilt coexist with purpose and destiny? And is strength innate, or is it something that you build and rebuild over and over and over again? Overall, I rated this book 4 stars. I don't think I'm going to continue reading this series until I finish the Stormlight Archive. I am so mentally captivated by that series since I read the first book about 2 weeks ago. And I think I need to hold off on other fantasy series until I've finished that, or at least read the next book of that, because I just kept thinking back to the other fantasy world. And I don't think I'm giving the Throne of Glass series a fair shot in doing that. So I'm going to soft DNF this series. I will be picking it back up. I know people love it, and I know people love it for a reason, and I'm excited to love it, but I don't think I'm ready to love it while I'm so invested in the Stormlight Archive. I will be coming back to it. I'm excited to come back to it. If you've read it and loved it and like know it gets really good, will you just tell me so that I have the encouragement to keep reading it, because I do want to come back to it. It's just not the time right now. That said, I did put this on 2 spots on the board. So we put this in the Rainbow Challenge. This is an orange cover, so it went in the orange spot. And then we also put this in the TBR Clean Sweep Challenge. This is Editing Sarah here. I'm going through my HRCYED board. I'm realizing I've made an error. I can't do the TBR Clean Sweep this month because there's a rule that you can only put a book in 2 slots for the HRCYED challenge. So when I picked Words of Radiance to be put in the spot for 5-star prediction, I can't put it in 5-star prediction and the TBR Clean Sweep because I must put it in the series staircase. So I can't put it in all 3 spots. We're gonna have to try and get a clean sweep another month, which is kind of disappointing, but I'm gonna have to categorize Heir of Fire. So we initially had it in TBR 1, but we need to move that. So we're now moving it to the name category and we're putting it in for H on my name. The rest of the graphics are going to be a little bit messed up. You're still going to see like the spot completed for TBR Clean Sweep 1, but that'll be fixed for future videos. But I just needed to put a notice in here because it's not going to make sense if I don't clarify why I'm not going to be trying to get a clean sweep this month and why I'm not putting those in the spots even though they are TBR books. I hope that clears up some of the things. I'm sorry I didn't think through this when I was picking my TBR. I definitely need to be more careful as I pick my TBR now because I did not realize that one of the spots for Words of Radiance was already locked in, and so I only had one other spot that I can have flexibility to put it through. Back to the video for the third book. The last book I read this week is If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. This is a nostalgic autumnal read that I was not ready for and thoroughly enjoyed. This is 1997. It is the most like beautifully tropey, Stars Hollow-esque found family world. Basically, there's this woman named Michelle. She has recently both gone through a divorce and lost her mother. And she has temporarily taken on ownership of this inn while she's waiting for her sister to graduate college and come own it and manage it. So she is meeting all of the people in this town that she's never met before. She's kind of being taken in, but she's not sure she wants to be taken in. She's a very strong, independent woman stereotype and is not really ready to let people help her and doesn't really know how to let people help her. But she has a neighbor, his name is Cliff, and he has daughters, and she starts interacting with them and letting them kind of seep into her life a little bit. And it's a really beautiful story of a slow burn romance and learning to let people in and softening yourself. It's a classic Gilmore Girl-esque book, and it's really, really sweet. Some of the questions this book asks are, how do you hold on to the things you've used to identify yourself while also giving yourself space to grow into somebody new and flourish into a different version of yourself that you might not have expected? It also asks, when is staying safe or making safe choices preventing you from hoping and maybe taking a leap of faith? And then lastly, it touches on, how do you navigate the death of a loved one when your experience with them is different than most other people's experience with them, which is such an interesting topic, and I feel I've not actually read a bunch about in a lot of literature. I rated this book 4.5 stars. It goes on 2 spots on the board as always. First, we put it in the monthly new release. This was a September release. I read it in September, so we can check that off. This category stresses me out more than any other category on the board, so the fact that we're still going is like, a breath of relief. We also put this in the seasonal category, and obviously look at the cover, this goes in autumn. And then this is what the board looks like with those updates for If It Makes You Happy. And now on to the weekly favorites. So I'm actually picking 2 because I didn't do a weekly favorite for last week's read because I only read 1 book and that felt weird. But the more I thought about it, I just love The Way of Kings, and so I need it to be on this board. I need it to be counted as some of my top picks. First, we're gonna put The Way of Kings in the 6th location, and this is right after Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And then my favorite book from this week was If It Makes You Happy, and I'm gonna put this right after The Way of Kings in spot 7. Overall, we have a lot more books to rank. I feel like it's harder for me to place them now that there are more spots to fill. And like I said in a previous video, I might go back at the end of the challenge and replace them because I do think that there are times where the novelty of a book really sticks out and I have a really strong impression of it immediately after, but then I don't go back to it or think about it farther down the line. So we may redo this ranking as like the last HRCYED video. We'll see when I do it, but this definitely is where I'm putting these 2 books for now. We're now going to spin the weekly TBR to see what I need to read before next week. Okay, I can read this book. I know exactly what it is. I actually started it and then I had to return it to the library. So I need to see if I can go get the book back again, but this should be accomplishable. And that's everything for this video. So I will be reading the 4th of the blurbed books for that category in this week. I so far have read 30 books, which is blowing my mind. I can't believe we're already 30 books into this challenge. We are 14 weeks into HRCYED. This challenge is going so rapidly. Like, I just did not expect to have read so much and have had time go quite so fast. So I'm definitely realizing how fast a year goes as I'm uploading weekly videos. Have we really already finished another week? It's just going so very quickly. 30 books down, 14 weeks in. For now, keep resting, keep reading, and I will see you soon.